Her breath was warm against my neck, trembling, almost begging. My hand trailed down her back, and she shivered as if my touch carried sparks. The dim motel light flickered, throwing her silhouette against the wall, and I remember thinking, God, how did I end up here? Her lips found mine, slow at first, then desperate. The way she kissed wasn't the way a woman kissed her husband. It was hunger, it was need, it was survival. I pressed her against the sheets, her small fingers tangled in my shirt as if pulling me deeper into her storm. Every second felt dangerous, every second louder than the last. I was about to drown in her ocean, her scent, her warmth, her whispered words that weren't meant for anyone else but me. And right there, before I let you hear the rest. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story. It's a confession. And once I take you back to the beginning, you'll understand how one man's comfort became his deepest regret. It didn't start here. No, this storm started long before we ever touched. I wasn't looking for her. I wasn't chasing danger. I was just a man living an ordinary life in an ordinary American town. I had my job, my circle of friends, and my quiet apartment. I wasn't married, but I wasn't lonely either. Or at least, that's what I told myself. She came into my life one summer evening at a small fishing pond just outside of town. The kind of place where the water sat still, reflecting the sky like a giant mirror. I used to go there to clear my head after long days at work. That evening, the air smelled of pine and fresh-cut grass. I noticed her sitting by the water's edge, legs folded, tossing tiny stones into the pond. She had this calm, almost fragile aura, the kind of presence that makes you look twice without even knowing why. She wasn't dressed to impress. Just jeans, a white tee, and her hair pulled back, but she carried herself like someone who had secrets. I nodded at her, the casual way strangers do, and went about setting my line. But she turned, smiled, and said, "You come here often?" That was it. A simple question. A harmless question. And yet, it opened the door. Her name, I won't say it here, for her sake. Let's just call her E. She was older than me by a few years, maybe mid-30s. Married, as I'd later find out. But that night, there was no husband in sight, no wedding band glinting in the fading sun. Just her eyes, curious and gentle. We talked like old friends even though we'd only just met. About fishing, about the quietness of the place, about how sometimes it felt good to escape the noise of life. There was a sadness in her tone that I didn't understand then, but would come to know too well later. When I packed up my rod to leave, she asked, "You'll be here again tomorrow?" And just like that, she reeled me in without even knowing it. The next few weeks became a ritual. I'd show up at the pond. And there she'd be, sometimes already waiting, sometimes arriving after me. We'd sit side by side, lines in the water, conversations drifting as easily as the breeze. She told me about her love for water, how she felt safe around it, how it was the only place she could breathe. I told her about my restlessness, how I worked but never felt like I was living. She listened in a way most people don't, eyes fixed, mind open, no rush to speak over me. The first time she let slip about her husband, it was casual, almost careless. "He doesn't get why I like coming here," she said, tossing another stone into the water. "Says it's a waste of time. Says I should be home." The way she said it wasn't angry, but it carried weight. I should have taken that as a warning sign, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned closer, caught in the mystery of a woman who seemed trapped but never admitted it outright. Little by little, the distance between us closed. One evening, she brushed a mosquito off my arm, her fingers lingering longer than they should. Another time, our hands touched when we both reached for her water bottle, and she didn't pull away. By then, I knew we were building something dangerous, even if neither of us dared to say it. The night it crossed the line wasn't planned. We'd been talking under the stars, the pond glistening with moonlight. She confessed she felt invisible at home. That she hadn't felt wanted in years. That her body was present, but her heart was starving. I should have walked away. I should have let her words sink into the water and disappear. But instead, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull back. She held on. The silence stretched, heavy, thick. Then she leaned into me, her head against my shoulder. I felt her trembling, not from fear but from years of holding herself back. And when I turned my head, her lips found mine. That first kiss was soft, uncertain. But then it deepened, hunger flooding through us both. The taste of her, the warmth of her breath, the way her body pressed into mine, it was everything I didn't know I'd been craving. We didn't make love that night. Not yet. But the seed was planted, and the soil was rich with temptation. From that moment, I knew there was no going back. That's how it began. That's how I slipped into her oceans without realizing how deep they ran. I thought I'd found comfort. I thought I'd found something pure in the middle of forbidden chaos. But what I didn't know then was that the same waters that carried me would one day leave me drowning. And that, my friends, is where the real story begins. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe, because chapter 2 will take you deeper into the nights of passion and the days of lies that followed. Her breath was warm against my neck, her fingers sliding against my chest, tracing invisible lines like she already owned me. I could feel the weight of her body pressing lightly on mine, her lips brushing dangerously close, teasing, promising, daring me to cross that line we both knew shouldn't even exist. And God, I wanted to. Her eyes, deep, restless, and dripping with need, looked at me like I was the only man alive. The way her small frame fit against me made everything inside me ache with hunger. She smelled like vanilla mixed with sin, and I swear, if desire had a taste, it would have been her. Her whisper came soft, shaky, but certain. Don't stop. I should have stopped. I should have walked away. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about her husband, my own morals, or even tomorrow. All I thought about was how badly I wanted to drown in her ocean, even if it killed me. But before I take you any further into that moment, let me pause. If you're listening to me right now, I need you to do one thing: hit that subscribe button. Don't just sit there watching, join me on this ride. Like this video, share it with someone who craves stories as raw as this one, and subscribe to the channel, because what I'm about to share with you isn't a fairy tale, it's my truth. It's my mistake. It's my confession. Now, let's rewind. Let's go back to where it all began. It started on a late Friday evening in Dallas, Texas. I had no plans, no reason to be anywhere special, but life has a strange way of pulling you into storms you never see coming. I walked into a bar I'd never been to before, a quiet spot tucked away off Main Street. It wasn't loud, it wasn't crowded, but the kind of place people went when they wanted to disappear. That's when I saw her. She sat alone, a glass of red wine in her hand, dressed simple but elegant, jeans, a soft cream blouse that clung just enough to show the outline of her curves. Her hair spilled over her shoulders like waves, dark and shining under the bar's dim lights. But it wasn't her beauty that struck me first, it was her loneliness. She stared into that glass like it was keeping her alive, her lips barely touching it as if she didn't even want to drink, just hold it. Something about that sight pulled me toward her like a current I couldn't fight. I don't know why I walked over. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the emptiness I'd been carrying myself. Or maybe, deep down, I already knew she was going to be my undoing. Rough night? I asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Her eyes lifted slowly, and for a second, I thought she would dismiss me. Instead, she smirked faintly, that kind of smirk a woman gives when she wants to push you away but secretly hopes you'll stay. You could say that, she answered. Her voice was soft, controlled, but I could hear the cracks underneath it. Want to talk about it? I asked. No, she said quickly, then paused. But maybe I want to forget about it. That was it. That one line. The doorway she opened, even without meaning to. We talked. Not about her problems, not about mine. Just, about life. She told me her name, though I'll keep it to myself for her sake. She laughed a little, leaned forward when I spoke, and with every word, every glance, I could feel the line between stranger and something more dissolving. And then, without thinking, she touched my hand. It was innocent, just her fingers brushing against mine on the table, but it felt like fire. Like she had just lit something inside me I couldn't put out. She looked at me, eyes darker now, heavier. I shouldn't be here, she whispered. But she stayed. Hours slipped by like minutes, and before we knew it, the bar was closing. She stood, adjusted her blouse, and looked at me like she was waiting for me to say something. Anything. Let me walk you out, I said. Outside, the night was warm, the air heavy with summer. She leaned against her car, hesitant, her keys dangling in her hand. I don't do this, she said softly, almost to herself. Neither do I replied. And that was the truth. She hesitated, then smiled the saddest smile I'd ever seen. Liar. I should have kissed her right then. I wanted to. But I didn't. Instead, I watched her open the car door, slide inside, and drive away. I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. The next morning, I found myself thinking about her more than I should have. Her laugh. Her eyes. That fleeting touch of her hand. And then, out of nowhere, she texted me. I didn't even remember giving her my number, but there it was. A simple message. Coffee. That was all it took. We met the next day at a little cafe downtown. No wine, no dim lights, just sunlight, people walking by, the smell of roasted beans. And yet, the tension between us was the same. Maybe stronger. She sat across from me, sipping her coffee, her lips leaving faint stains on the cup, and I couldn't stop watching her. Every move she made, every smile, every silence, it all pulled me deeper. At one point, she leaned in and whispered, I don't know what I'm doing. But I can't stop. And I swear, that was the moment I knew I was already drowning in her ocean. But listen, before I take you further, let me remind you, if you haven't already, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear a story that feels too real, and hit that subscribe button. This isn't the kind of story you'll find anywhere else. This is raw. This is confession. This is me putting my sins out in the open. Back to the story. Our meetings became regular. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into long drives. Long drives turned into stolen moments in hotel rooms where the world outside didn't exist. The first time it happened, it wasn't planned. She was in my car, parked near a quiet lake on the edge of town. We had talked for hours, laughed, shared pieces of ourselves we'd never told anyone else. And then, in the silence that followed, she leaned over and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't slow. It was hungry, desperate, like a dam had finally broken. Her hands pulled at me, my hands gripped her like I'd been waiting my whole life for that moment, and before I knew it, we weren't talking anymore, we were lost in each other, right there under the stars. And in that moment, I didn't care about the consequences. I didn't care about right or wrong. All I cared about was how it felt to finally drown in her ocean. Looking back now, maybe that was my biggest mistake, believing I could swim in something so dangerous without eventually being dragged under. But at the time, she wasn't a mistake. She was everything. I used to think that affairs only belonged to movies, whispered gossip, or broken marriages that were already halfway gone. But when you're inside one, when you're the other person, it doesn't feel like a scandal, it feels like an addiction. And that's exactly what she became to me. Her texts, her calls, the way she'd sneak in moments when her world wasn't watching, it all started to feel like oxygen. I couldn't go a day without hearing her voice, without stealing just one more piece of her. It didn't take long for us to trade the safety of cafes and quiet walks for locked doors and drawn curtains. Hotels became our playground. Cheap motels when desperation hit us, upscale suites when she wanted to feel like she wasn't hiding in the shadows. Each place was the same story, two people burning through a night like tomorrow didn't exist. The first time we crossed that line in full, I remember the guilt hitting me for maybe a second. It was there, hovering, whispering in the back of my mind. But the moment her lips pressed against my skin, it vanished. Her body had a way of silencing every warning bell, and I let her. I didn't care about her husband. I didn't care about the life she had outside of me. I just cared about how she made me feel in that room, tangled up in her ocean, like I was finally seen. One night, we were in a hotel downtown, an expensive one with glass windows overlooking the city. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, wearing nothing but one of my shirts, her hair messy, her face glowing in the dim yellow lamplight. "Do you ever think about what this is?" she asked. I leaned against the wall, sipping the whiskey I had poured. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she bit her lip, nervous. "We're not kids. We know what we're doing. You ever think about how wrong it is?" I paused, staring at her. She was asking the question, but her eyes weren't looking for honesty. They were begging me to lie. So I did. "No," I said. "I don't think about it. Not when I'm with you." She smiled faintly, but I saw the shadow pass across her face. She wanted to believe me, but deep down, she knew. We both knew. Still, we kissed again. And just like always, the guilt disappeared the second her body pressed against mine. But here's where it started to change. You see, when something begins as comfort, as escape, it doesn't stay there forever. It shifts. It demands more. She started calling me late at night more often. Sometimes, she'd cry softly into the phone, whispering how empty her marriage felt, how she couldn't breathe in her own home. Other times, she was bold, teasing me with words that left no room for sleep. And me? I soaked it all in. I let her make me the savior, the lover, the distraction. But slowly, I started to feel the weight of what I'd become. Because here's the truth, I wasn't just the man giving her comfort. I was the man helping her build a double life. One evening, after another long session in that glass-windowed hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed while she slept beside me. The city lights poured in, and for the first time, I really looked at her, not the way I looked when I was hungry for her, but with eyes that searched deeper. She looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Like the world outside had never touched her. But then I thought of the man she would return to, the bed she'd slip back into, the smile she'd fake in her own home. And it hit me. I wasn't just drowning in her ocean. I was becoming the storm in her life. But even with that thought, I didn't stop. I couldn't. Her pull was too strong. Her touch too addictive. She once told me, "You make me feel alive again." Those words haunted me. Because if I made her feel alive, then what did that say about the life she already had? And what did it say about me, willingly being the shadow she ran to? Before I take you further, let me pause right here. If you're still listening, don't forget. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to feel the weight of real stories, and hit that subscribe button. These aren't fairy tales. These are confessions. My confessions. Now, let's get back to it. There was a night that sealed it for me, the night I realized this wasn't just lust anymore. She had come over late, dressed in a black dress that hugged her in all the right places. We didn't go out. We didn't talk much. She just threw her arms around me the second I opened the door, her lips crushing mine like she'd been starving. That night was different. It wasn't rushed, wasn't desperate. It was slow, drawn out, like she wanted to memorize every second, every touch, every sound. Afterward, she laid on my chest, quiet, her fingers tracing circles on my skin. "Do you ever wish I was yours?" she asked softly. The question hit me like a punch. I didn't answer at first. She lifted her head, her eyes searching mine. "Do you?" And in that moment, I almost said yes. God, I almost said it. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed her forehead and whispered, "Right now, you are." She closed her eyes, satisfied with that lie. But me? I felt the regret creeping in. Because the truth was, I wanted more. More than nights, more than secrets. And I knew I could never have it. That's the thing about drowning. At first, it feels like floating. You convince yourself you're safe, that you can handle it. But eventually, the weight pulls you down. And I was sinking fast. There's a saying that every lie eventually asks to be fed. And by the time months had passed with her and me tangled in this double life, I could feel the hunger of ours. What started as stolen kisses, as wild hotel nights that blurred the line between lust and comfort, grew into something heavier. She wasn't satisfied with just the shadows anymore. She wanted more of me. More time. More space. More of the life that wasn't hers to claim. And me? I was too weak to say no. It was a Tuesday when she showed up at my apartment unannounced. Rain had been falling hard all day, drumming against the city streets, soaking everything in its path. I heard the knock, and when I opened the door, there she was, hair wet, mascara smudged, eyes red like she'd been crying. "I couldn't stay there," she whispered. I didn't ask questions. I just pulled her in, shut the door, and let her collapse into my arms. She clung to me like I was the only thing keeping her alive. And maybe, in that moment, I was. We spent that night in silence, her curled against me on the couch, the storm outside matching the storm she carried inside. No touches, no heated passion, just her breathing against my chest while I rubbed her back until she finally slept. And I remember thinking, this is more dangerous than any night in a hotel bed. Because sex was simple. But emotions? They demanded answers. The next morning, she was still there. She made us coffee in my kitchen, wearing one of my shirts, humming softly to herself like she belonged. And for a brief second, I let the image burn into me, what it would be like if she actually was mine. If mornings like that were real. But then her phone rang. She looked at the screen, froze, and I knew. Her husband. She ignored it. But the silence that followed was loud enough to choke us both. Later that day, as she dressed to leave, she caught me staring at her. "What?" she asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. It was the weight of knowing she'd walk out that door, slip back into her other life, and I'd be left with nothing but her scent on my pillow. And still, I couldn't let her go. Our affair only deepened after that. She started finding excuses to leave her house. Grocery runs that lasted too long. Yoga classes that never happened. A weekend work trip that turned into 2 nights in a cabin outside the city, 2 nights where she told me more about her life than I'd ever asked to know. She painted the picture of her marriage, and it wasn't pretty. Loneliness. Coldness. A man who was there physically but not emotionally. A bed that felt empty even when it was full. I listened, nodding, pretending I wasn't silently fueling her escape. But part of me started to wonder, was she telling me the truth? Or was I just the story she told herself to make this feel justified? Either way, I didn't stop her. I couldn't. One night, as we lay tangled in the S. Let her go. Our affair only deepened after that. She started finding excuses to leave her house. Grocery runs that lasted too long. Yoga classes that never happened. A weekend work trip that turned into 2 nights in a cabin outside the city, 2 nights where she told me more about her life than I'd ever asked to know. She painted the picture of her marriage, and it wasn't pretty. Loneliness. Coldness. A man who was there physically but not emotionally. A bed that felt empty even when it was full. I listened, nodding, pretending I wasn't silently fueling her escape. But part of me started to wonder, was she telling me the truth? Or was I just the story she told herself to make this feel justified? Either way, I didn't stop her. I couldn't. One night, as we lay tangled in the sheets of yet another rented room, she looked at me and said something that froze me. "I wish I'd met you first." Her voice cracked when she said it. And I swear, for a second, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to imagine a world where she was mine without secrets, without fear, without regret. But the truth burned through me, she would never really be mine. No matter how many times we drowned in each other's oceans, she belonged to someone else. And the more she gave me, the more I realized I was building a cage I couldn't escape. Before I take you further, let me pause. If you're still here, you know how deep this story runs. Don't forget, like this video, share it if it pulls at something inside you, and hit that subscribe button. These confessions are raw, and they only get heavier from here. Now, let's dive back in. The cracks started showing slowly. One afternoon, we met in a quiet diner on the edge of town. It was supposed to be casual, coffee, maybe a slice of pie. But she was restless, her knee bouncing under the table, her eyes darting toward the door every time it opened. "What's wrong?" I asked. "He's been asking questions," she whispered. "About where I go. About my phone." My chest tightened. "And what did you say?" She looked at me, eyes wide, desperate. I lied. But I don't know how long I can keep this up. I swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down. For the first time, the possibility of being caught didn't just flicker, it loomed. But even then, when logic screamed at me to pull away, to end it before it burned us both, I didn't. Instead, I reached across the table, took her hand, and said the most selfish thing I could have. "We'll figure it out." And just like that, we were bound tighter than before. But let me tell you something about lies, they don't just demand to be fed. They demand to grow. Soon, she wasn't satisfied with hours. She wanted days. She wanted holidays. She wanted promises I couldn't give. And I was too far gone to stop drowning. One night, she asked me, "Do you ever regret this?" The room was dark, her face inches from mine, her breath warm against my skin. I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to scream it. To admit that every kiss carried guilt, that every touch came with a shadow of the man waiting at her home. But I didn't. I whispered no. And she smiled, kissed me, and drifted off to sleep while I lay there wide awake, choking on the lie I had just told. Because the truth was, regret had already found me. It had been sitting in the corner of every room we shared, watching, waiting, growing. And I knew, it was only a matter of time before it swallowed me whole. Her lips trembled under mine that night, and for a moment, it felt like the world had stopped spinning. The glow of the bedside lamp painted her face in soft golden light, and I could see every shiver of hesitation battling against every rush of desire. I pressed my forehead against hers, whispering things I had no business whispering, words that made her eyes glisten as though I had found a part of her soul no one else had ever touched. Her ocean, her body, her warmth, her sighs, wasn't just flesh. It was a place where I drowned willingly, a tide I never wanted to escape. Every time I pulled her close, she melted, and every time she reached for me, I knew I was going deeper into waters I wasn't strong enough to swim out of. "Stay with me tonight," she whispered, her voice fragile yet demanding. And I stayed. Her hand brushed over my chest like she was memorizing me, her nails tracing down as if carving me into her. Every kiss, every gasp, every desperate press of our bodies made it feel like we were rewriting the rules of the universe. Her hair fell around us like a curtain, shutting the world out, and for once, I didn't care who she was supposed to belong to. All I cared about was the way her body answered mine like it had been waiting forever. I know this is intense, but before I take you deeper into this ocean we shared, let me pause and remind you, if you're feeling this story, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video, share it, because stories like this one only get better when you stay with me. Alright, let's keep going. Her voice broke when she whispered, "I've never felt this alive." I should have pulled away. I should have reminded her that life, marriage, and promises existed outside those four walls. But instead, I kissed her harder, letting her feel the hunger she had awakened in me. Every movement, every sound she made was a confession. Confessions her husband would never hear, secrets she had chosen to give only to me. And I was greedy. I wanted more. More nights like that. More mornings where she lay across my chest, breathing as if she had finally found home. I wanted the way her laugh sounded when I teased her, the way her eyes closed in surrender when I touched her. But I also wanted what I knew I couldn't have, her forever. It was dangerous, intoxicating. Her small frame curled into mine, yet she devoured me completely. She left no part of me untouched. No part of me unchanged. I started living for stolen hours, for messages that lit up my phone in the dead of night, for the promise of her ocean swallowing me again and again. I didn't care if it was reckless. I didn't care if regret was waiting like a predator in the shadows. Because when she looked at me, all I saw was a woman reborn, and all I felt was a man losing himself willingly in her tides. Somewhere in the middle of our affair, she leaned against me after another night of love that left us both shaking, and she whispered, "Promise me. You'll never let go." And I lied. I whispered back, "I'll never let go," even though we both knew there would come a day when this would crumble, when her husband's presence, or her conscience, or maybe my own, would tear it all apart. But that night she was mine. Fully. Completely. Beautifully. And I was hers. Her ocean wasn't calm. It was stormy, passionate, demanding. It wasn't a place to rest, it was a place to get lost. And I loved every moment of being lost with her. I know some of you listening are already imagining the danger in this, but stay with me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss how this story turns. Because as beautiful as it was, regret was waiting, and it was closer than I realized. I drowned in her again and again, and I smiled while I sank. But drowning always comes with a cost. Her ocean used to be my escape. But somewhere along the way, it became my cage. I remember the last night I held her like it was painted on my soul. Her head was on my chest, her breathing soft and steady, her body still trembling from the storm we had just made together. The room smelled of sweat, perfume, and secrets. She traced small circles over my skin with her fingertip, like a child afraid to lose something too precious. But instead of feeling alive like I used to, that night I felt empty. It was strange. I had gotten everything I thought I wanted, her body, her attention, her words that made me feel like I was more than just a man sneaking into a life that wasn't mine. Yet, when she whispered, "I wish you were him," it was like someone had thrown cold water on the fire we had built. She didn't mean it harshly. In fact, she said it with tears in her eyes, with her lips brushing my neck like she couldn't live without me. But in that moment, the truth stabbed me clean. No matter how deep I swam in her oceans, I would never be enough to anchor her. I was her secret, her escape, her guilty smile in the dark. But I would never be her forever. And suddenly, all the passion that once felt like salvation began to taste like poison. I want you to pause here with me, my friend. If you've been following this story and feeling every twist of my words, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop a comment, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss how this ends. This isn't just a story, it's a confession. And I want you right here with me until the last breath of it. Alright, let's keep going. Her husband never caught us. That's the strange part. It wasn't discovery that ruined me. It wasn't the fear of exposure that dragged me under. No, it was her silence the morning after. She kissed me goodbye with trembling lips, told me she'd text later, and walked out like she always did. But the message didn't come. Not that day. Not the next. Days stretched into weeks, and I realized her oceans had closed. She had retreated, shut the tides, and left me stranded on dry land, gasping for the water I thought I couldn't live without. Do you know what regret feels like? It isn't a sudden crash, it's a slow, heavy drowning. It's checking your phone at 2 a.m., hoping for her name. It's smelling her perfume on your sheets weeks later, wondering if she still wears it for him instead. It's replaying every word she whispered in your ear, trying to figure out which were truth and which were lies she needed to believe in that moment. Regret isn't the loss of her body. It's the haunting of her ghost. I started drinking more. I started staying out later, chasing shadows of women who never looked like her, never touched me like her. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her, smiling, gasping, begging me not to let go. And yet, she had let go first. The cruelest part. She didn't even have to explain. I already knew why. She wasn't leaving me. She was returning to the world where I had no place. To her husband. To her life. To the man whose name she carried and whose bed she still called home. I was a season. A storm. And storms don't last forever. One night, I saw her again. Not in my bed, but across the street from a coffee shop. She was holding his hand, laughing at something he said. That laugh, it tore me in two. Because I knew that sound. I had heard it while she was on top of me, while her body trembled under mine. I thought it belonged to us. But there she was, giving it back to him, as if I had only borrowed it. She saw me. Our eyes locked for a second too long. And then she looked away. That was it. No wave. No smile. Just silence. That silence screamed louder than any argument, any goodbye, any confession ever could. And that's when regret finally swallowed me whole. I had risked my peace, my sanity, maybe even my soul, for an ocean that was never mine. I thought I could swim forever in her tides, but in truth, I was just a drowning man clinging to someone else's shore. Now, when I lie awake at night, it isn't her touch I remember. It's the regret. The regret of loving someone who could never be mine. The regret of being addicted to a comfort that was always meant to end. I gave her all of me. She gave me nights I'll never forget. But in the end, I was left with nothing but memories. And the crushing truth that my comfort in her oceans became my deepest regret. So to you listening right now, learn from me. Desires can feel like paradise in the moment, but sometimes, paradise is just another name for poison. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Because this was my truth. My confession. My regret. And now, it's yours to carry with me.